Hello, everybody. I'm Lee Blickley, and I'm joined by the wonderful Derek Hough. And we just saw that incredible video, which clearly has this room very quiet. But we're very excited to have you here, Derek.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
That?
I appreciate it. No, it's this is a project I've been working on. I'm very passionate about it. Yeah, what can I say?
That was beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Not only is the song beautiful, but the video is incredible too, which I know you directed the music video.
Yeah, you know, so this song, I actually wrote this song 5 years ago. I wrote it for a friend who was going through a tough time, and that was it. You know, I just kind of wanted to write it for them, but I was driving in my car, and I had learned about Chester from Lincoln Park, you know, taking his own life, and it really affected me. I'd met him a couple of times. We had opened up a children's hospital together in Utah, and went golfing with him one time, just briefly. But it just affected me, not only as a fan, but also just from meeting him. And then while I was driving, the song kind of came up on my playlist, and I thought, you know what? I want to do something with this, and I want to talk about this, because I've experienced a suicide in my extended family. You know, it's something I just see more and more now, you know, especially with men. And when I actually dove into the subject a little bit more, it was actually very surprising to me, because 3 out of 4 suicides are men, and 500,000 a year are taking their own lives. And for me, it was just sort of an eye-opener, and I was thinking about like the correlation between, you know, why that number is so high with men, and also this sort of like traditional masculine mindset of like, well, we can't talk about our feelings, we can't share our feelings, we have to sort of bear this burden, we have to sort of tough it out. You know, talking about the way we feel or our thoughts, there must be something wrong with this, or we feel shameful about those thoughts. And I feel like that the more we talk about it, the less of a stigma we make it, the better chance we have of bringing that number down, you know, and possibly helping. And I think that's sort of my mission, that's sort of my goal with this song and this video, and just sitting here talking about it and working with the Movember Foundation, who are fantastic. And before this, honestly, if I'm honest, I looked at them as, you know, focusing more on cancer and of obviously the mustache campaign and getting that out there, but their involvement with mental illness and mental health and suicide prevention is fantastic, and it's something they work on, you know, year-round globally. So it's all been sort of a wonderful alignment with them.
Nice fit, because they do, of course, like you said, the cancer and the cancer research for men, and that's what this is all about. But they also touch a lot on mental health, which is what you mentioned is men, you know, struggle with mental health and struggle with getting their feelings out there. Did you kind of want this song to be a way for you to get your own feelings out there, and then, you know, motivate others to tell their own stories?
Well, you know, it's interesting, because the more you talk about it, the more stories I actually hear. You know, for me, I've experienced it in my family, in my life, and you see the effects it has on the family members and friends, and it really it got me curious. It got me curious about the human condition. So I started reading books and going to seminars, and, you know, what could possibly get somebody to that place where they feel like there's no hope. And it's a lot more common than you think. And that's what's interesting. I think when we think of mental health, we think, oh, there must be something wrong, and, like, you know, or it's like a bad thing. And when it's not, it's just your emotional, it's your mental health. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean you're crazy. It just means like 1 out of every 4 adults will go through a mental illness in their lifetime. 1 out of every 4. It's common. Yeah. And I think that we look at that as like there's something wrong with us. And there's not. You just have to address it, talk about it, get it out there, and especially with men, because we definitely carry that burden. We definitely keep it, you know, we take that breath and we hold our breath. We never let it out, you know, and I just sort of really encourage everybody to let it out. And I think it's also, too, because, you know, when we talk about, you know, mental health, it's hard because it's not really tangible. You know, you have something like a broken arm, you go, hey, you know, put a cast on, 2 weeks, you'll be fine. And it's a tangible fix. Whereas if I say I'm depressed, or if I'm going through a difficult time, you know, we tend to run the other way. And we sort of shy away from it because we don't really, it's scary. It's scary to talk about. But I think the more we talk about it, the more tangible we make it, and hopefully the more lives we can possibly save. So.
Yeah. Well, because it's even that stigma with therapy, and, you know, how some people go to therapy. I know many people would just go to therapy to get their feelings out there, but there are also others who judge us for seeking out that help.
Yeah.
So this also touches on that. And you know, being in the time that we're in right now, when there's a lot going on in the news and in the world, it's more important than ever. Do you find that? Is that why you found that it was the right time to release the song?
I think, yeah, I really do. I mean, again, what kind of brought those feelings back up for me and what brought it back to the surface was, you know, these recent, you know, suicides, that were the public ones, I should say. But, you know, on this video, one of our set designers, and I knew him previously from the Michael Bublé video I directed, and he was the most happy, smiling, just a great guy. And after the video, he came up to me in tears, and he said, you know, I just want to thank you. This has been an amazing project to work on. And I'm like, yeah, my pleasure. And he told me, he's like, you know, I tried to take my life a month ago, and I'm just so thankful that I'm here. I'm so glad I'm still here, and I'm you know, I'm doing my best. And you know, I just broke down, and I gave him a big hug, and we hugged it out. And but you just never know, you know. And on November 11th, I'll be releasing another video, but it's a dance concept video. And I'm working with a young boy who's, you know, 21 years old. And again, his story is remarkable. He lost his dad when he was 11 years old. And what made it even more heartbreaking was that his dad actually sat him down and told him what he was going to do. And he actually said that, when you come home from school, I won't be here. And like, even just talking about it right now gets me, you know, choked up, because it's hard to imagine. But again, it's happening so much, and for me, the thought of somebody suffering I can't stand it. I can't stand that idea of somebody suffering, especially suffering in silence. And so I just want to reach out to just anybody and everybody out there, you know, to talk about it, you know, talk to somebody about it.
Well, you have that personality too, and that joy that you bring to people's lives when they watch you on television or in Hairspray or dancing. So it has a special impact because it is you. I have to say that. And like you said before, we don't know what people are struggling with. You can look like the happiest person on the outside, but you don't know what people are dealing with on the inside. You mentioned your family member. Can you talk about that a little bit more? I know it's a difficult subject.
No, you know what? It's an extended family member. It's my uncle. He back in London. You know, it was close to the holidays, and he had a little girl. You know, and you know, I remember being about 15 years old, and the police officer opening the door and saying, you know, do you know Dave Rich? And my grandmother and my mom, my extended mother, Shirley Ballas, and they, you know, it was her brother, her son, and they just collapsed in my arms. And I remember holding them while they just found out that they had lost, you know, that person in their life. And it was a pretty powerful moment, you know. But it was also the moment that it got me curious, and it got me, you know, in just human beings and what makes us, you know, what could get us into that place. And I will say that shame, that emotion, shame, is an absolute soul-crushing emotion. And I feel like whenever I talk about things, or I'm talking to some guys or whoever it is, whenever we say shame, everybody kind of goes, oh, yeah, they all relate to that emotion, that feeling. And I just have to say, you know, just let it out. Don't carry that with you, man, because the more you carry with you in silence, the more it grows, the more it festers, the more it becomes, and it, you know, takes over. And for me, if I can do anything to help in any sort of way, that's what I'm here to do. I think, you know, being a performer, like you mentioned earlier, you know, doing Hairspray or doing the dance or Dancing with the Stars, you know, for me, I'm a performer. I love to perform. I love to create, you know, choreographing, whatever it might be. You know, storytelling is sort of my currency, if you will. And, you know, I'm here to serve. I really am. You know, there's an audience. I'm here to serve in any way I possibly can. And whether it be just fun, lighthearted entertainment, which I believe in and I love dearly, or if it's sort of trying to spread a message like this that for me is important, but a little bit more of a serious matter, but I feel like is important. So,
and being an artist and being a storyteller, how did you go about taking your words to this song and putting it into video form? And, you know, you have a veteran in there, and then you have a grieving mother. How did you come up with the concept for the video?
Well, as far as having the veteran in the story is, I'm an ambassador for the Invictus Games, which is the Olympics for our wounded warriors and our amazing servicemen and women. And I was just recently there in Toronto, and I was watching these amazing games. They're incredible, athletes and just incredible heroes. And I learned a lot more about PTSD and about, how not all wounds are visible. And that really stuck with me. That really sort of affected me in a way that I wanted to show that in this video, because that number is also extremely staggering. Our heroes, who serve our countries, who are often forgotten and left behind, and feel like there's no way out, and they can't get outside. They can't get outside of themselves, and so yeah, I don't know, man. You can tell this definitely gets me going. I
mean, the video had me, and I think had everybody really feeling the emotion that you wanted to portray. And I think that's one of the things is these men and women go off to war and they come home, and there's support for them, but not the kind of support that they necessarily need. And we have no idea what they went through. So it was touching that you use that. And then you also bring in, like I said, a grieving mother to kind of counterbalance and to show different sides of the way mental health can affect you.
Well, and that's a very extreme case. I think losing, a child is probably, I could only imagine. Honestly, I couldn't even imagine, to be honest with you. But I wanted to sort of go that far with it in the sense that that even in those types of times, in the darkest of times, and especially traumatic moments, I mean, even from, what happened yesterday in New York City, which is an absolute travesty. It's just insane. And for those people that were there and involved in that or witnessed it, who will have those, carry that with them, I encourage, anyone who's affected by any sort of events like that again, they talk about it, they share it, and they get it out. Because, holding on to that it's definitely not going to serve you in any way. So
how do you go about taking care of your own mental health? Because you seem to be very grounded, and you seem to be aware that if you need to get something out, who are the people you go to, or who,
I honestly wasn't like that, though. I think I honestly relate to this a lot because I'm actually the opposite. I want to be the hero, I want to be in my family. I don't want anybody to know that I'm going through any difficult times. I don't want to talk about it. I isolate myself, but once I figured out and found that I can actually, that it's okay. It's okay to not be perfect. It's okay to talk about your feelings. It's okay to go through some difficult times. And it's more than okay to reach out. Because like so many out there, I found it as a weakness. I was like, I don't want anybody to know I'm going through a tough time. I want to be, but once I did, it just was like just letting it out. It was like exhaling, and it's incredible how all of a sudden all those things that seemed so big suddenly became not so big. Yeah. But yeah, I think for me too is standing guard at the door of your mind, because there's so much information happening, and they're just getting bombarded with so much happening with the news or social media or whatever it might be, TV, television, so much information happening that we have to be careful, and we have to be very aware and mindful of what we allow ourselves to see and allow ourselves to look at. Because for me, I'll unfollow a lot of things that I used to find funny, or I used to find, because I realized that they weren't serving me. They were making me feel a certain way. They're making me feel a certain emotion that wasn't serving my day-to-day life. And so I had to stand guard at the door of my mind, and I said, you know what, this isn't what I want in my mind or in my emotions and in my life. So I would just say, just be conscious, be aware of what you let in. Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned this path to perfection. Do you find that as like a dancer that you were shooting to be perfect, or even being like a brother surrounded by women and sisters?
Totally.
That you're the only boy.
Well, one thing I've realized, I used to pride myself on being a perfectionist. I was like, I'm a perfectionist and everything has to be. But what I realized that perfectionism is the lowest standard you can have. It's the lowest standard you can have because it's unobtainable. It doesn't exist. So if it's unattainable, then you're going to be constantly disappointed. You're going to constantly be upset because you're never going to achieve it. And so there's always a sense of like never being satisfied. But for me, again, like, being the only brother of all these sisters and all these women who I care for deeply and I love, I feel very much like I want to be there for them. Yeah. And I am, but also part of being there for them is allowing them to be there for you. you know. So I think that that's important, and giving people the opportunity to be there for you. And you'll be surprised. I think you'll be surprised when you reach out and you become vulnerable enough to share what you're going through, and not be afraid of it. There's nothing wrong with you.
You know, being in this world of, you know, you've found a lot of success, you're in the industry. Do you have that core group of people that you can go to who kind of keep you grounded? Because it is an industry, as we're even seeing in the news, that a lot of stuff happens and you never know what someone's experiencing, whether they're an A-list actress or, you know, a pro on Dancing with the Stars. It's a big industry.
No, it is, and I think that for me, I do have a great support system and a great family and people I can talk to about certain things. And again, you know, just honestly, recently in the past, you know, year or so, there's been times when I've, you know, reached incredible lows, and I never thought I could possibly, you know, reach that place. Because so many great things are happening in my life, and I'm so grateful, and I'm just feeling wonderful, and then boom, something happens, and I've had family members who rose to the occasion and were there for me, and I certainly would not have been able to get through it, those type of emotions without that support and that help, and if I would have, it would have taken a lot longer. Yeah. You know, so.
So does this spark this song? You know, it's a deep personal song, but does it spark in you maybe some more music and releasing some more of your words out there? Because there's a lot of topics I'm sure that you want to touch on.
Yeah, you know, for me, again, if people are like, oh, now you're singing, you know, or something.
I said backstage, he's kind of like the new Ryan Seacrest. You could do anything, man. You are always busy.
Right. I'm so sorry, Ryan, just today, actually. No, but no, you know, for me, it's, again, like I said, my currency is storytelling, you know, is sharing, it's serving. I'm here to serve in any way I possibly can. And if that's just with fun entertainment, you know, just, which I love, and I love just performing and being on stage or being on television and dancing or choreographing, you know, this is just another palette to the paintbrush, you know what I mean, of what that is, you know, with melodies, with music. Because music for me, as a choreographer, is where it all begins. Yeah. It begins with the music. And then the story, the concept, and then the moves come. So for me to create music, for me is something that I love to do. If I'm honest with you, I've never really been brave enough, I guess you want to say. Like, I've always just kind of written music and kind of kept it there, just kind of to myself, and just something I love doing. But this got me, it moved me, and it inspired me, and I wanted to sort of, you know, take my own advice, I guess, you know, in the sense of, you know, pushing myself and going past my comfort zone, if you will, and working in a you know, in a way that is not what people are so much used to seeing me do, but yeah, to answer your question, in the future, there's definitely more projects to come, for sure. Yeah,
because it's funny to me that you were just driving and you hear the song and you never released it, and then you had the bravery to kind of say, you know what, I want to put this out in the world. Yeah. That takes a lot of courage.
Yeah, it was something it happened instantly too. I was in the car, and I it's another word of advice. If you ever feel an idea or something, like, act on it immediately, because I think that when you're in that place is when you make the best decisions and when you actually make things happen. And I remember listening to it and going like, boom, I got on the phone and said, hey, I want to re-record the song. I want to make a video about it. I got to talk about this, you know. And like within like a day, I was already talking about it and planning it and getting it out there. But if I would have waited like another day, I probably wouldn't have done it. You know, I probably wouldn't have been in that sort of mode of like urgency and like this has got to happen. So.
So you said you're going to make another video with choreography around this song.
Yes.
Yeah. How do you go about choreographing to music? Because it's very much like you said, you're a storyteller, and we see that on Dancing with the Stars or World of Dance or So You Think You Can Dance.
Yeah.
I mean, he's won Emmys for all of his choreography. So.
No, I have actually, to Sandra Chavez, who I've worked with in the past. I asked her to choreograph this, you know, and to help me with this project, and I'm really looking forward to that video as well, because for me, I wanted to make sure that the content that I produced was, you know, a narrative, and then with this one, definitely a visual, and of course dance related, because, you know, for me, I'll never shy away from my dance. I love dance. It's the most beautiful thing in the world, and I want to make sure that I represent myself and represent these stories, and also represent, you know, Connor, who's the boy who's going to dance in this video, represent his story. and share his story, because it was powerful. You know, when I heard it, I knew we had to share it. So.
Well, speaking of dance, I've seen you commenting a lot on Mark Ballas, your bud, who's back on Dancing with the Stars with Lindsey Sterling, because they are. Does everyone here watch Dancing with the Stars? It's so good this season. She is incredible.
She's doing great. Yeah.
Now you're commenting, but would you ever go back to Dancing with the Stars? Because I know I miss you as a pro on that show.
There's no plans as of yet. I mean, World of Dance, very excited.
Another great show.
It's
oh my God,
so good. And what's so great about that show is that we're coming back. We started filming in January, and last season we did 10 one-hour episodes, because it was kind of like a trial. We're like, let's see if this works out, and it worked great. And next season we're doing 2-hour episodes, and it's gonna be 13 episodes. So we're going full out. This is gonna be bigger. We're gonna be making, I'm very excited. I have a meeting about it next week about like ideas that I have about performances or just sort of packages, and so yeah, it's exciting. I'm excited about it. Next year is a jam-packed year, which is why I honestly want to dedicate myself this next few months to doing projects that were in serving others in some way. So yeah.
Yeah, what's coming up for you next year? So you have World of Dance, which I loved. I knew from the first episode, I was like, ooh, this is going to be something, because you never really know with reality TV.
I had no idea. I was like, I believed in it, absolutely.
Like, yes.
I believed in it, but I was, when I saw it, I was incredibly proud of that.
So what's next? You have more,
There's
you doing
more.
movies?
There's just more, people. There's just more. Yeah.
There's always more with Derek Hough, yeah.
No, but for me, I'm very fortunate. I was talking about this earlier today, how lucky I am and fortunate enough I am to be able to do projects like this that I'm passionate about and that are meaningful to me. And it's because of these amazing platforms I've been given, and I'll never take that for granted. And I'm incredibly thankful for that, and want to and serve in any way I possibly can. And I'm a thankful guy. What can I say?
Very humble. Well, I do want to open it up to the
Yes.
audience for some
Hello.
questions. Who's first?
Hey, Derek.
Hi.
So I know you mentioned how hard it is for people to, talk about their mental illness. I was wondering, what can we do to help those struggling with mental illness?
What can I say to them?
Yeah.
Well, one is that, there's that expression that you are not your thoughts. And then that's hard to imagine when you're experiencing it, because you're like, no, I am my thoughts. Like I can feel what I'm thinking, and it's devastating, and it's a vortex, and it's a place I cannot get out of, and there's a sense of shame and a sense of just hopelessness. But I will say that it isn't the end. Essentially, there's a sort of acronym, HOPE. Hold on, pain ends. And I really believe that. I think part of the healing process and part of getting over it is talking with somebody, is letting it out, is expressing it. Because when you talk about it, it becomes a little bit more, like I said, tangible and almost like real, where you can begin to sort of separate yourself from that and also begin to overcome it. It's sort of like that when it's unspoken, it just lives here. It just lives here, and it just gets recycled, and it's like a movie playing over and over and over and over again. And it's like, if you went and saw a terrible movie, you wouldn't go see it again, would you? Right? But for some reason, replay these movies over and over and over and over again in our minds, and it drives us crazy. So I would just say, reach out and talk to somebody, because it's been said so much, right? It's sort of almost oversaid, but it's because it's true. It's because it's true. So.
Because you mentioned before, like Chester Bennington and how shocking that was, and even his music and Linkin Park, and you never know what people are struggling with ever. Even if it's in his own music, he clearly never got out and talked about it.
Well, but the thing is, he would discuss it. He would talk about it. But it's in those moments that. It's in those moments when it's at its height, where you need to talk about it, and express that to your loved ones and to people close to you, and to have that support. So, yeah. Hi.
Yeah, here we go.
Derek, sorry. You spoke about the stigma for men to be tough, and that's why they can't express their feelings, and they may end up committing suicide. So I wanted to know, for young men growing up, what can they do to kind of end that stigma?
Yeah, like I said before, there is that definitely that mentality of like, I don't want to talk about it. I'm strong. I'm toughing it out. But I guess my advice would be to not look at it as a weakness. You know what I mean? To not look at it as like there's something wrong with you. You know, I think that reaching out and talking, and especially with your buddies, you know, your friends, and there's this weird stigma of like guys that can't like open up and share and sort of become vulnerable with each other. It's like, you know, I encourage, you know, especially young men to be a new man, to be a new kind of man, because there's a sort of old mentality of what a man is. You know, we're not supposed to talk about our feelings. We're supposed to do this, and we're supposed to just, you know, get on with it. And I believe that there's a new generation of man. It's sort of a new definition, you know, of a man being present, a man being vulnerable, and a man being not afraid to share his feelings. So, thank you.
This is a little separate, but you know, with Stranger Things coming out this weekend, I noticed that a lot with that show is the young boys are very vulnerable and sensitive and kind of support each other in a way that we don't really see on screen. So just having, again, art that can display those sort of things that we're trying to get across is really meaningful.
No, sure. And, you know, do you guys watch This Is Us?
Yes.
Yes, right?
Cried last night watching
Seriously.
This Is Us.
So I watched an episode, and actually there was they use that line in the episode about how, you know, he's dealing with his you know, the trauma from his father's death, and she said to him, she's like, you're taking that breath, but you're holding it. Yeah. He's like, you just need to let it out, and it's so true. Mm-hmm. And I'm so glad that they're, you know, talking about it in that way, and in that artistic form, and so yeah, it's definitely out there. I just when I see a lot of men and guys, and I'm talking with them, and they're going through difficult times, you could tell they're so timid and they're so uncertain if they want to really. I'm fine, I'm cool, yeah. But it's okay. It's really okay. It really, really, really is. And I just want to let people know that, you know.
Gotta hug it out sometimes.
You really do.
That's what we were saying backstage.
You really,
you just
really
gotta go in for the hug.
Yeah.
All right, we think we have time for one more.
Oh yeah.
Hi. So this is a very powerful song that you wrote, and I was wondering, when did you get the sense that the song was completed? Like the process of writing it until you know this is perfect, this is all the lyrics I want, and how it will flow and send out this powerful message.
To answer your question, never. Because I'm always like, is that enough? I'm not sure. It's funny, you should hear the original song. The original song is totally different. It actually is kind of like a country song. Honestly, there's like more guitars in it, there's more drums, it's more like rock and roll. But I felt like it wasn't quite, because I wrote it 5 years ago. So it was very much sort of then, and music's changed even a lot since then, and so I wanted to update it. And if you talk to the music producers or people that were around me in that time, they'll tell you there's about 20 different versions. I'm like, well, take that snare out, or add this vocal here, or add this harmony. So it took a while, and a lot. To be honest with you, a lot of times it's just I sometimes overanalyze things, you know, especially when it comes to when I'm choreographing or making music or the video. But I'm very particular about what it is. So to answer your question, I kept it relatively simple, melodically and lyrically, because I just wanted to make sure that the message was you know, came across. So, but yeah, for me, it's always difficult for me to stop. You know, it was like somebody's drawing and they're like, well, what if I just add one more thing? You're like, no, stop, it's good, stop. Yeah, so I definitely had to do that to myself. Yeah.
Well, it's a wonderful song and a wonderful video. And I'm very proud that you are partnering with Movember Foundation. And you have a beard already, but are you going to keep growing it out all month?
By the way,
by the end of the month, you'll be like the Revenant.
I think I'm just so happy that I finally got facial hair. Because I was a late bloomer, you know, so when I got it, I'm like, this is never leaving me, ever. Except for, I'm sure people online are like, shave your beard.
No, by the end of November, we want to see a full beard, right,
Yeah,
guys? Big, burly beard.
It's just as burly as it gets.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. No, we'll see how I can go. But you know, definitely. And I definitely have beard envy when I see some guys out there and have these amazing, thick, luscious, glorious mustaches and beards, and I'm like, oh. No.
I want it. Well, thank you so much for sharing this
Thank you very
passion
much.
project. Thank you all for being here too. Thank you, Derek.
Thank you guys. Thank you.